If you are using a Windows PC, I believe there are some apps that you should have a level of familiarity with because they're so important. There are many different apps like this, like the settings menus and things like that. However, one app that I think only mostly pro users or very enthusiast type users know about is actually called Task Manager. And you've probably used it, but in this video, I want to give you a sort of guide on how to actually make it very useful and extract pretty much all you need in terms of monitoring your PC and controlling different processes within your computer. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright guys, so now that we're here, let's get started with looking at the Task Manager. So you guys will probably see a view that looks more like this if you guys use it up. And here, this is actually quite useful as well. You can sort of see at a glance what sort of programs are open and end them. Because sometimes if you go ahead and hit sometimes when a program is being unresponsive and things like that, if you go and exit out, it will show, it just won't X. Right, obviously in this Chrome instance it does work, but sometimes, as you guys can see, Chrome's also running in the background. And if you guys are doing something really intensive and want all of your resources to go into something like that, if you're gaming and you don't want to have, and you want to get maximum performance, things you can do is probably turning off some of the background apps going on here. So turning this off, as you guys can see, I'm getting a whole bunch of stuff here actually, because Google just relies on a whole bunch of, different extensions that you have. So be aware, I would not recommend turning this off. But things like some of the background apps here absolutely could be good. But let's get into this once you hit more details. And this is where it gets much more exciting, and it's much more important to know this sort of context menu. As you guys can see, there's a bunch of options here. And the main thing is you guys don't really need to worry about these options. It's really about learning about these different windows. And the most important ones are probably processes, performance, and startup. So the processes, if you expand, you guys can sort of see exactly the different programs running and the different background processes, including ones that are native to the system. What I mean by native to the system is that these are processes by Windows themselves in order to make sure that the operating system is running as per plan. So if you actually see Windows Explorer is one of them, and things like that. So Task Manager is one of them. So Task Manager, opening up this window, is actually one of the processes that is eating up some of the resources of your system, right? Because it makes sense. Every single process going on in your computer takes a certain amount of resources to actually execute, right? You guys can see I have Epic Games Launcher running in the background too, and these are some of the things that just run in the background. They don't eat away too much space, but they're still there. So what I like to do is just hit one of these tabs, and it shows you, so this is showing by sort of ascending order, but I like to see by descending order, so the most impactful apps first. So as you guys can see, OBS Studio is taking up the most space. That makes sense because I'm recording this video using OBS, and I can check out the memory. Google Chrome, Google always takes up a whole bunch of memory. I think I have it open in another desktop, that's what's going on. OBS as well makes sense, right? And here you guys can sort of see if some background processes are sort of eating away at your resources while you want them to sort of be concentrated. And this is just really great, right? I can just go ahead and close away Epic Games, and that saves me a bit of space, and I can sort of monitor, like, why is Epic Games running? It shouldn't be running. So you can just go ahead and end the process right there and prevent it from using up any of your other valuable resources. So next, and one other thing I'd like to point out is you can actually see all the different sub-processes for an app. You guys can see the OBS, I only have one instance, but Discord and multiple apps like that have multiple different processes. Usually this represents, it's usually per tab, but I believe that sometimes even if you have a couple tabs open, it'll show many more processes, and that's because Chrome runs so much different stuff in the background, like extensions and things like that. So that's why you guys can sort of see these multiple things. But the next tab I want to go on to is the Performance tab. The Performance tab is actually really important as well, and it shows you the different resources or the different sort of, it's almost like doing like a checkup of the computer, like doing a checkup of the body. You guys can sort of see almost like what the heart rate is in the CPUs, sort of see like how much percent it's being used. You guys can see it gives you like a snapshot right here, 26%, or you guys can see it here as well. It says being up used 26%. And this is the speed, this is the amount of uptime. So the amount of uptime is the amount you've used up the CPU, which is pretty much all the time because nothing else works with a CPU. And there's a couple of other processes that you can see: cores, logical processors. So these are threads. So these are a couple of things that you guys will see. And here you guys can see the CPU that you have, which is quite convenient as well. Memory, you guys can sort of see how much memory you guys are using up, the total amount of memory you actually have, and the total sort of available memory, how much is being used, 60%. You can see your disks. So I actually have 2 disks. I have an external disk going on, which is a D drive right here, but the C drive is not being used very much, whereas if I was doing something disk intensive, like moving files around and things like that, it would obviously be pretty high. You guys can monitor your Wi-Fi usage to see sort of if your Wi-Fi card is good or not, and this is like a pretty good way to see what your Wi-Fi card is in reality. And your different GPUs will come up in here. So I'm using the integrated graphics, so I do not have like a GPU, like discrete GPU as it's called, which is essentially like the NVIDIA GeForce or AMD Radeons and things like that. So I do not have any of that. But if you guys want to see even more of these performance, you guys can go ahead and hit this thing at the bottom, Open Resource Monitor, and it'll give you even more stuff. So, but I personally don't prefer this view. It's a bit too much at times. This just is a much cleaner view in my opinion, so might as well go with this. So the app history pane, in my opinion, is not that important. I really don't even know why exactly it's there, personally, because it doesn't really show. It shows you sort of how much time it has taken up, right? So films and TV has taken up 10 minutes, or I don't know if that's hours. As you guys can see, it sort of shows you how much sort of space it's taken up since this date. So I believe every month maybe it refreshes, but yeah, this isn't the most important pane. This, on the other hand, is much more important, and you guys will recognize it if you've watched some of our other videos. And this is where you can actually turn on apps for startup, and all that really means is that like when your computer actually starts up for the first time, like boots in, these apps can run, and you can actually disable some apps from running. Like I have like this Canon thing. Like every time I open up my laptop, I don't need to print something. I don't need the Canon app. I don't need Epic Games Launcher. Like I'm not gonna game every single time I open my laptop. So these are just some of the things you can turn on to make sure your computer boots faster, as well as you don't get those annoying pop-ups on load. And this is just user. So if you have multiple different users, which I don't, this is just my personal user, my personal computer, so I don't really need to access this pane, but you can sort of see by user how much they have sort of been using the system. And it's really great if you have multiple users. And this details pane is also very nice. It sure shows you some of the processes occurring on your PC, or that have occurred in the short span of time the computer has been up. And the services, this is just, I don't know what this is exactly, but I guess it just gives you some of the snapshot of the different Microsoft services going on, whereas the details is including the different sort of apps going on in here. So guys, that has been it for the Task Manager, and in my opinion, the Task Manager, sort of being able to navigate around the Task Manager is a very important sort of skill, or just some important knowledge to have in terms of sort of maintaining your computer, seeing if if your memory's at like 100% for like 5 minutes. That means you probably either don't have enough memory, or B, there's some process going on in the background that you really need to look into, if it's malware or whatever. So this is it's sort of like a really great diagnostic tool to see exactly what's going on, how much CPU is being used, what the uptime is, looking at startup and things like that. So that has been it for this video. Let me know how it was. Let me know how we can improve, and any other ideas for future videos. But that has been it from me. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.